So how far are you supposed to walk every day when you're doing the Camino? To answer that question,
it's another beautiful day on the Camino, and I am going to tell you about our walk from San Juan de Ortega to Burgos. Now, there's a lot involved with this one, so I'm going to break it down into three parts. First of all, the walk itself. Second of all, where to get food. And third, alternative routes, because there are two places where you will have to make a choice. The walk itself is pretty straightforward. Fields, mountains, and other. You will start by walking through fields for a while. After you hit the town of Atapuerca, that's where you'll hit a mountain. You'll climb over that mountain. Then you'll start hitting a few more towns until the end push into Burgos, which is a pretty long push. So, about food. If you're a morning person and you like your coffee and you think you're going to need to stop somewhere, the first town you get to is Agis. As soon as you enter the town, there's a cafe. Now, what we did and what a lot of people did was think that there would be plenty of other places to stop, because Agis is pretty soon after you start, so you might not be ready for coffee or breakfast yet. Well, there is nothing else for quite a while. In fact, about halfway through. So you'll hit Agis. After that first cafe, there's not another cafe in Agis. There's nothing in Atapuerca. There was I think one other little town along the way, which there was nothing there. And then finally, your first opportunity for food will be Cardenuela, Rio Pico, and that is 12.6 kilometers into the walk. We had a great little meal there, but it is a ways if you are a morning eating person. Now, let's talk about alternative routes. There are two places where you will have a choice. The first is after you climb the mountain. As soon as you get down to the bottom of the other side of the mountain, you will hit a split. One road goes directly straight ahead of you, the other turns to the left. After looking at a few maps, I think they're pretty much the same length. So as far as length goes and as far as difficulty, I don't think there's really any difference. So if you go to the left, you will hit a little tiny town called Villaval. Now, there are no facilities in this town. There is a little park where you can sit and rest. And that is really the only advantage of going that way. But it is a nice little town and a nice little walk. To the left, probably the same if you go straight ahead, just without the little town. Right after the two paths meet up, which is not very far, just a few kilometers, then you get to the town of Cardenuela, Rio Pico. Not long after, you'll come across Orbaneja, Rio Pico. And these towns aren't far apart. After Orbaneja, that is where you will have to make another choice. Do you go the industrial route through the outskirts of Burgos, or do you take the river route? I think a lot less people take the river route. We chose the river route, and I think I would recommend it. The river route is 0.4 kilometers longer, which really a quarter mile basically is not a lot of a difference. And of course, we did not take the more industrial route, so we don't know what it's like. But the river route was really nice. It starts out along the side of the airport, so it's not beautiful for the first couple kilometers, but once you do hit the river, it is gorgeous. You are in public parks for several miles along a river. There's lots of trees, lots of shade, lots of people around enjoying the parks. I think that the river alternative is a good choice if you don't need to save every step because of blisters or other injuries. Now, to find that one, once you leave the town of Orbaneja, you will cross the highway over a bridge. As soon as you cross over the bridge, you'll have the chance to go straight ahead or to turn directly to your left. It's not really well marked, so what I would recommend is downloading an app called Camino Ninja. You get on that app, you simply push the map option, and it will show you the two different routes, and it'll show a little blue dot exactly where you are. So there's no way to get lost as long as it's working. You just follow the route to the left and it'll take you right to the river. Now, once you get on that route, it's not as well marked probably as the other route, but it is marked so you can tell that you are on an official Camino. There are yellow arrows out there and shells and everything you want to make you feel like you're going the right direction. Another great thing about the river section of the walk is it takes you directly into the old town part of Burgos, which is probably where you'll want to stay anyways. We stayed at a hotel called Hotel Centro de los Brazos. This is the thing about Burgos. It is a pretty expensive town. If you can get away with staying at an albergue, you're probably much better off. We wanted to stay for 2 nights and we wanted a private room so that we could have room to spread out and let Rob's blisters heal and to just relax a bit. So we ended up picking this place, and it cost $81 US a night. For that, we got a private room and a private bathroom. We were really happy with that, and we're glad we made that choice. But that was on the cheaper end of things in Burgos. So if you really want a place by yourself, you could spend quite a bit. The hotel itself was fine. It seemed like a few broken bits here and there, but it was kept very neat and clean, and there was a really nice cafe downstairs where you could get some food or wine and just relax. Overall, I think we were pretty happy with our choice there. We ate twice. The first was along the trail in Cardenuela, Rio Pico. There we found a place called Bocateria, and there we got a sandwich and a torta de patata and a donut, and all of that together cost $10.75. And it was delicious, and there were a lot of people there because it was the first place and only place to stop. So it was a very social environment there, which we enjoyed a lot. We had one dinner out when we were in Burgos, and we ate at a little place called Taco Mama. And yes, it sounds ridiculous. It was a little fast food place, but the food was actually quite delicious, and a lot of it. We both got burrito type dishes that came with a soda and nachos with cheese. And it was a nice big meal, and we paid about 10 euros each for that. Now, Burgos itself. This is a big, beautiful city. Once you get to that center, you're really going to be impressed with what you see there. There are parks and squares and statues and everything you want in a big city. There are museums. Some of them are free. Look it all up, and I think you'll find a lot of things to do. Now, the centerpiece of the city is the cathedral, and it is a stunning piece of building. We often heard about how beautiful it is, both inside and out. For sure, the outside is gorgeous. We did not go inside, but people who did go inside said it's absolutely beautiful. They do evening mass sometimes, so look that up and see if they're doing one when you're there, and they'll do a pilgrim blessing. Anyways, there are a lot of things to do there. It is big. There is even a decathlon store just outside of town if you want to take a trip to that to replace shoes or poles or anything you might need to do like that. Today my shout out is going to be to all of the pilgrims for one specific thing: for keeping the Camino neat and clean. There is hardly any trash anywhere, even little scraps of paper. It is beautiful the whole way, and I really think that shows a lot about the respect of all of the Camino walkers along the way, and I really appreciate that.
So how far are you supposed to walk every day when you're doing a Camino? The answer to that question is there is no answer. You get to walk however far you want to walk. Now, you're going to find a rhythm for yourself and kind of figure out where your sweet spot is. But basically, how far you have to walk comes down to two things. How far are you going in total? How much of the Camino are you walking? And how many days do you have to do it? And so you just take how far you're going divided by the number of days you have, And you want to keep in mind, you want to schedule some rest days in there probably. And then you divide that into it, and you're going to come up with the number of kilometers you have to walk every day. Just some bad math. If you're walking 100 kilometers and you want to walk 10 kilometers a day, that means it's going to take you 10 days to finish that route, right? For us, we weren't really sure what we would want to do. We found our sweet spot is around that 20-25 kilometer distance. That's pretty easy for us to walk. And we'll leave in the mornings somewhere between 6:30 and 7:30. And then we generally get where we're going depending on how flat or uphill or whatever it is and how often we stop. We'll get into town anywhere between, 12:30 and 2 o'clock, somewhere in there. And that's a pretty easy pace for us, and we've been pretty comfortable with that. There are people who do longer. Actually, I just saw a post of a guy who ran the whole thing, and I think he ran the entire 700-800 kilometers in like 10 days or something. Totally crazy, but if you're an endurance athlete, you can do that. And that might be a good experience. A lot of people like to go slower and, get the feel for the Camino a little bit more. But of course, it depends on how many days you have to do that. Now, we've talked to people who started out walking farther, and then they realized they just don't like walking that far. Oh, going up a hill here. And they got to a point where just to protect their bodies, they started walking half stages. Because here's the thing. There are, depending on where you get your information from, there are not technical, they're not official. There's just very common stopping points along the way. People refer to them as stages, where you stay here and then you go here and then you go here. And some people hold really close to those. And some people like to get away from them because when you're off stage and in the towns that not as many people stay at, they're just smaller. A lot of the albergues that are not in the official stages, like they have to get creative for people to stay there. And so that's where you start finding the places that have like a swimming pool or that have a reputation for throwing a really amazing communal dinner that night. We talked to some people who stayed at a place, it's an old monastery that has no electricity. And they do these big candlelight dinners. And the people we talked to said it was just amazing. There's like the singing nuns. There's lots of those unique kind of places to stay along the way. And most of those are not in a big city. To find those, you have to do a little research. We did not do any of that research. We've just been letting our first Camino be whatever it is. And so, like I said, we get up in the morning and we look at the schedule and we look for a town that's maybe 20-25 kilometers away, and that's our destination for the day. After we've been walking an hour or two, I'll get on booking.com and see if I can book a room ahead of time. Sometimes we can't, and then we just walk in and get a dorm bed. It's been very good for us. So you just have to decide, how far do you want to walk? How many days do you have to walk it? And then figure out those stages for yourself. We've talked to people who are walking like 10 kilometers a day, and that's their sweet spot, and that's all they want to do, and that's great. So don't get too panicky. If you read about other people who are walking, 20 miles a day, you don't have to do that if you don't want to. All right, I say most things in kilometers because that's how it's all marked here, and it just gets in your brain, and then I say miles and it sounds funny. But whatever distance you want to walk, you don't have to do what other people do. You get to have your own Camino. You get to walk your own distance, and you're going to have a great time. So hope that helps Buen Camino. We do a video every day that we're walking. I'll put the playlist so you can catch up right here.